I was gonna say before we started, you kind of remind me a little bit of Louis C.K. Maybe it's the Massachusetts thing, but I think he's from Boston, isn't he?
He is actually from my hometown, and we went to the same high school.
Oh,
Oh, okay. So I hit the
Yes.
nail on the head.
You
there,
did really hit
right?
the nail on the head. So I remember in high school, he was already kind of like a comic. And I just remember he was like writing on Conan, like very early Conan O'Brien. And I was like, that guy with red hair that can't get girls and is nerdy. Like, it just blew my mind that you guys went to high school, you met plenty of people. Most of them seemed like idiots, right? It was high school. Everyone's an idiot in high school. And and I even knew like an actress in high school that had been in a couple of big movies, and I was like, she's going to be the star. She's going to be the famous actress I know. Nothing ever happened. She's like a working actress in New York. And then this guy, I mean, I think I was a freshman when he was a senior. Like, this guy who's not that funny in person, and he does stand up. Like, he's writing for a TV show. How does that even work? And then I started doing stand up a little bit, which everyone in Boston does stand up. It's just required. He came and saw me and gave me some thoughts. And I saw him after he had figured out his career, figured out his act. And I was like, this guy's a genius. And then I have followed him ever since. I was a Louis C.K. Adoptee way before anyone else. And of course, then had to take a pause when, that happened. But
yeah. So you guys were actually in the high school at the same time, or
no? We're 4 years apart. Like,
okay.
I was a freshman when he was a senior, but I hung out with older kids and knew him. And you never know in high school who's going to become like the biggest comedian or biggest superstar, or who the Elon Musk in your high school is going to be. So it's always just weird.
Usually always the weird, quiet one, which makes sense. I mean, they're artistic. They have open minds. They look at life and the world a lot differently than we're programmed to look. So,
But I think
I was just thinking of that.
All his shows are amazing. I think he's like probably the best comedian since George Carlin. He's like up there with Chris Rock. And he likes to do stuff in front of women that he probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to compare you to him in a bad way. It was more the good aspects of him. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
here's what I do. When I ask a woman if
voice.
I could jerk off in front of her and she says yes, I say, nah, let's not. That's a bad idea.
You say sign this contract. Are you sure?
Yeah. That's what I do. I say, hey, do you want to have sex? And they say, yeah. Then I say, never mind. I
prove it. Yeah. You have to do it.
Then you go, at least I still got it. Right. Like, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, that's a whole mess. And I have all kinds of opinions about that. And it's all complicated and whatever. And, it's a tough time now. Like, you can't, it's not a tough time. It's like the world is changing a little bit. And what he was, he got kind of caught up in some other stuff. Like, he's not Harvey Weinstein, who is like
for sure,
like Hannibal Lecter or whatever. Like, that guy's a monster. And like Matt Lauer and all these Me Too happened, and it grabbed a bunch of other people. And I was like, I mean, even some of my female comic friends are like, I hate him. I just despise him. And I'm like, but what did he do? And
Louis C.K.
Yeah, they're like,
I'm surprised about that, because like you said, I didn't think it was that as big of a deal as it was made out to be. Like, I mean, obviously it depends on the circumstance, but like, I felt like if the women were in the room and he was doing what he was doing and they didn't leave, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do it. I don't do that. But like, so like, obviously if he held them there against their will, then that was wrong. That would actually be kidnapping. But if they were there and he started doing that, it's weird, but it's not like horrible.
Bill Burr did a stand-up comedy skit on this topic, and he was talking about how it was like about ruining the top men, through the Me Too movement. And again, like, let me preface by saying a lot of bad things happened, and they should be prosecuted. They should be lawsuits. There should be all these things. There should be these people being removed from powerful positions because they did take advantage of it. But he did do a skit, Bill Burr did, where he talks about, kind of the same situation and how if the roles were reversed. So he did a stand-up comedy skit or event, whatever, like a VH or not VH, but a Comedy Central thing. And at one point, a woman that just performed walked off stage, slapped him in the ass, grabbed his ass, and said, "Beat that." And he's like, I just felt like I was touched. You know what I mean? So, I get it. And it's usually the opposite way around. It's usually the men to the women. I get that. I'm not going to deny that. But there is some circumstances where it's like, to your point, Mike, was it, nobody wants to see something you don't want to see, right? And if the roles were reversed and somebody walked out like Sarah Silverman or something, and she was just like, "Look at this," and, people would laugh and be like, "I don't feel so comfortable about it." But I think the bigger problem is that it happens so frequently, and in so much more, I don't know, emotional and psychological demise that it needed to be addressed. But to your point, Micah, like the Louis C.K. thing, there's a reason why he's still doing comedy, and he addressed it like right when he came back. So he included it in some of his skits. So I don't know. It's kind of he's kind of on the border, but there's some definite people that violated a lot, and I'm glad that that's changing. I am. I really am.
He's collateral damage, and he's also got like tens of millions of dollars. Like, yes, I know he's not making TV money, but he's well off. He didn't like take a guy who's working minimum wage and force him out of his industry and he's destitute. Like, it's a guy who's okay. So if it like starts a conversation about like where that line is, and yeah, I've seen that Bill Burr skit and it's really funny, but like men have power, and especially a famous man, he has power. And so these comedians were in the room with them, and it is kind of awkward. It is weird, show busy, like, well, this guy who's got more than what I have wants to do something really weird. Like, what do you do? And I think it was his manager or whatever, his people that work with him that were calling them and say, "You better not talk about this or we'll ruin you." Like, there were definitely some really awful elements to it that maybe Louis C.K. didn't do, but like people in his, ecosystem. But yeah, there's also a moment where I'm like, okay, well, he lost the FX deal, and he can't tour like he did. Like, he's been punished. So what's the path to returning? Like, my comedian friends are like, "I'll never watch his comedy. I hate him." And I'm like, but like, as a society, aren't we supposed to punish people and then rehabilitate them and then return them to what they do? Like, he has a special where there's a sorry behind him, on stage. Like, the whole special is just him apologizing, which he did poorly in the beginning. I know he was like, "Oh, it's complicated." And like, learning to accept your role in something like this is not easy. I was not prepared for it. Like, no one taught me, how do you apologize to all of female kind when you've been busted doing something kind of gross and kind of weird?
It's hard enough for me to apologize to my girlfriend for making the dishes weren't fully done. Like,
exactly.
So how do you get to that? And like, to your point, yeah, I agree. It's like, how do you so the whole point is about like prison systems, and I'm not saying like that was prison worthy, but like prison systems and rehabilitating people to be part of normal society again. Like, if you're just going to discard it and say, "I'm never going to be interested in him again," or "I was his biggest fan, but now I'm not, and now I'll never watch him again." Well, what if he makes changes? Like, isn't that the whole point of human progression, is to
exactly
get better and better and better and better and learn from your mistakes? I mean, that's kind of what if you teach it or you preach it, then you should accept that, that person is remorseful.
Yeah. And he is honestly one of my favorite comedians. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's just so dark. And it's like, when he came back after that whole scandal, like 5 years later or whatever, he came out and like he didn't dumb his comedy down. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've heard any of his newer comedy, but it's like, it's still pretty like dark and
raw.
I don't even know what the word would be, like he doesn't hold back. You know what I mean? And I give him credit for that. Have you talked to him since then? Have you like given him a call and been like, hey man,
Oh, since
I heard
the
what
thing
happened. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah,
No,
the
I don't want
original
to.
thing.
No. And I saw him a couple of times in my 20s, and then he just became, he was bubbling along like he was a comedian's comedian. And then at some point, like 10, 15 years ago, he just exploded. Like he, Louis and all these shows. And he left the stratosphere. But I know people that know him, and that's a perfect example of, it's super complicated. It's super hard. Harvey Weinstein's not complicated. Like, he's been convicted by two juries. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to figure his life out. He'll go to prison and find Allah or whatever, and write a book about it. But he's a monster. He's a sociopath. And you like Tony Soprano. You can't fix that. That's a broken human being, like Ted Bundy. Not that Harvey Weinstein murdered anyone, at least that we know of. But like some people are broken. Some animals are sick and they need to go away. Pedophiles, serial killers, Weinsteins. But Louis C.K., I feel like he did something bad, but he's being treated like he can't be redeemed. And it's like, the world responded to what he did. They let him know that's kind of bad and don't do it. And I don't think he does it anymore. He's certainly not going to do it again. So
hopefully not.
Hopefully
That's the main thing is just don't do it again. But yeah, Kevin Spacey's another one that like probably just won't come back. I'm assuming
that was shocking to me.
I mean, he just comes off. Kevin Spacey just comes off like a sociopath. Same with Harvey Weinstein.